supposed to have contact with father because in theory the goal is family reunification, put it back together again. But guess what they started to tell the young couple that had the baby in the pre-adoptive home? You know what? Father's never going to get the kid back. Father's always angry and pissed off. I think he's a misogynist. I think he has issue with women. And they kept that baby in that pre-adoptive home. And that young couple, we later discovered, couldn't have children. They were happy to have that baby. And they were getting close to that baby. They were taking the baby to family activities, kind of holding that baby out. At one point, they even decided to get a larger place to live. Because, you know, they had a baby and they would have set up a baby room and all this stuff. That family and those children stayed in the system over a year and a half. I was assigned to the case at one point because, you know, that father, he's really an angry guy. So maybe a guy in the case would help out. So they assigned it to me. I started to read the reports that were being written. And sure enough, father does not appear fit. He has an anger management problem. And I think he has an issue with females, and he has daughters. We're going to add that to the concerns. And we're still not sure what happened to that baby that died. Even though law enforcement decided there was no wrongdoing, no issue, and no evidence of any issue. So I kept reading those reports, and I kept hearing about these horrible stories about this father and what's going on with these kids. I started to observe the family. I started to monitor visits. At first I did it in the office, but the office sucks. It's a 10 by 10 room. These are kids at different ages, developmentally. You can't have a natural visit to find out what this relationships are like, who these people are. I insisted and got in trouble at various points along the case, but we had them in the community. I wanted to see what they were like in their natural environment. Even had the visits at their house. And then brought them into these large conference rooms in the office. And guess what I saw when I had those visits? Wow, these kids are really connected to the father and their grandparents. These are pretty healthy relationships. Wow, they seem really close. In fact, they seem really bonded. And they seem really happy when they see their father and their grandparents. And gosh, they really miss each other because they weren't having any contact with each other. Because remember, they were in separate homes, especially the baby that was separated. Now, after every visit, it was a coincidence that this young couple that had that baby said the baby suddenly contracted these symptoms right after every visit. And they needed to take the baby to a hospital because it was vomiting and it had a temperature spike and all kinds of problems. Well, that went on for several months, that mysteriously the baby somehow had a problem after every visit. Well, I watched every visit, especially the baby. And I saw siblings playing with the baby, father changing diapers, helping to feed the baby, grandparents bringing food, interacting with the children. I saw a normal, functional, healthy family system. And I'm thinking, why did we take the kids in the first place? Well, I had a chance to talk to the previous social worker that was on it before me, a younger social worker, been on the job maybe 3 years. And he said, you know, Jerry, I'm seeing the same thing. And I saw the same thing. But I couldn't really write it all in the report, because you know how they edit our reports. Because the reports need to be consistent with the position taken initially, right? Regardless of the facts, regardless of what's going on, we kept that family separated for over 1.5 years. In fact, even though I made efforts to get the truth into the report, and we social workers after a while learned that we have to use different techniques. We use what I call the cipher method, where we sneak coded language into reports. Hopefully it doesn't get removed. Or maybe we'll hide the language in certain parts of the report. Hopefully it won't be seen, because they're long reports. And if that fails, we try the deep throat method, where we'll call the other attorney anonymously and say, you know what, this is what's really going on. Because otherwise, if you want to say anything that's inconsistent with the position that's taken initially by those ghost authors, it doesn't make it into the report. The people making recommendations are not that social worker. So these reports are going in. Before that family was done with the system, they were returned and detained 3 times. And eventually the court said, you know what, I'm done. Obviously, you're trying to relitigate the initial concern of the death of that sibling that was already proven and decided that there was no wrongdoing, but you were clinging to that to build a case, and you've kept these children away from their family system for almost 2 years at the point they finally got back. Now, as a clinician, as a therapist, I saw these kids have incredible levels of anxiety, symptoms, develop depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety concerns disorder and issues, attachment issues. They became parentified. And for those that aren't familiar with that term, is they turn into little parents, especially with their younger siblings. Because now they were afraid that they were with strangers. At one point, they moved one of the older siblings to where the baby was. And this was a real smart sibling. She intentionally sabotaged the placement she was in. She was a holy terror. And she made sure she was going to be moved. And then she said, well, can I be placed with my baby brother? Why did a smart girl, oh my goodness, I'll tell you. So she got to the baby brother. Guess what she did when she got there? She went into protective mode. And she started to see how this young couple was getting so attached and becoming bonded themselves. Not because they were bad people. They couldn't have kids. In a pre-adoptive home, they were being told the likelihood that that evil, angry father would never get the kids back. Well, of course, this was going to be my child. So she started to do everything she could to make sure that that baby knew she was still part of the family system. At one point, she would lock herself in the bathroom with the baby. And she wouldn't come out. Now, this drove the foster parents crazy. They weren't sure what to do. And they started to complain. I'm sorry, I don't think we can continue to have this older sibling. That older sibling's being very disruptive in our house. Well, thankfully, it was at this point that the court started to get fed up and see the writing on the wall. And of course, it's hard to see the writing because it doesn't make it into the reports. But it started to become really clear because there was this strange guy named Jerry Dominguez that kept putting all these inconsistent facts in the report. And this was very confusing at some point. But then they started to realize, oh my God, what have we done? The kids eventually went back, thankfully. To this day, the kids are still with the father and their grandparents in a healthy family system that loves them, that cares about them. And we've seen this happen over and over again. Because sadly, in CPS, as well as our courts, we don't seem to demand facts. We don't seem to be that concerned about the truth anymore. We all want kids safe. Nobody wants a child abused. Nobody wants a child seriously neglected. But somehow, somewhere along the way, we lost our way. And we're now finding situations where ghost authors are making recommendations and the courts are okay with those recommendations without demanding truth, without demanding actual facts. And we're seeing families ripped apart and harmed, or loving family members that may be going through tremendous loss themselves, only to have a system come in and take what losses are going through and add serious insult to injury, to take an already complex, difficult situation and then nail that last nail in the coffin. instead of reaching out to help families. I also had a chance to work in the system long enough to experience a program that did something really strange. A program that actually invited the family and the community into the decision-making process. I mean, this was bizarre. I had never experienced this in a system that thrived on power and control as a way of addressing these complex issues. This program actually decided, you know what? Maybe families are the best guide for their own. Maybe they're actually the experts about themselves. Wow, what a concept. Maybe we should invite them into the process before we make a decision. There was a program called Family Group Decision Making. It was a conference model. In this conference model, we would actually invite the entire family when they were available, not during the day, because after all, we want folks to work, right? We would do these in the evening or on weekends. And why would we come to the office in those 10 by 10 rooms? I don't think so. We did these in the community, at churches, at parks, at houses, the back of my car, wherever the family felt comfortable. And we said, you know what, family? Can we call all of you together? Family defined as anybody that loves the child. Anybody that wants to be a positive part of their welfare, their well-being. We want those people to come to these meetings. And in these meetings, the families got a chance to pick the reason why they were coming. We called it a purpose statement. So that was the focus. Purpose statement, family came together, and in the meeting, we'd have everybody there. I would facilitate, and then we'd ask the family, okay, can you tell us about your family, the strengths of the family? We first want to find out about the strengths. Wow, the strengths? Okay. Well, I'd hear things like, the aunt is very loving, the uncle is a great mechanic, and father is incredibly attentive and really cares about the education. And we'd have all the family members, the relatives, the minister, the priest, the rabbi, talk about the strengths of the family. Because after all, isn't that how we deal with our issues in life? We rely on our strengths to deal with life challenges. Human Beings 101. The children were present. Of course they were present. Oftentimes in this situation, children are absolutely ignored. They almost disappear in the struggle between the adversarial parties in the court system, or the adversarial nature that absolutely takes place between family and the system. But in this conference model, children were there, and they got a chance to share their strengths about their family. Oh, I really love my dad because I really love my mom. And a lot of times we have paternal and maternal sides. Well, as is true in life, sometimes maternal and paternal aren't getting along very well. But we had all the kids there. So the kids were saying really nice things about both sides. It encouraged both sides to start to say nice things. Because after all, the kids are listening. And oh my goodness, talk about a powerful voice when the kids start to talk about how they feel and what they're experiencing. So we hear the strengths. And after we get all the strengths, then we hear the concerns from the family. Okay, what are your issues and concerns about the reason why you're here, the purpose statement, about child safety and welfare? What do you think, family? What's going on? And we tried to help the family share the concerns in the way that we could all listen to it. We didn't want names. We didn't want examples. We wanted those issues underneath the names and examples. Well, we're concerned that we want the caretakers maybe to be clean and sober. That we want mother to have more help because mother's going through a really hard time economically. We get all the concerns. We put them on an easel as well as the strengths. And then, of course, the agency representative would share the agency concerns. But remember, this was a family meeting at a family home in a lot of cases. So that social worker, oh my goodness, they were in the family environment, allowed and privileged to be part of the family experience. So as a facilitator, I of course had the representative from the agency share their concerns. And oh my goodness, this is where we did most of our work. Because invariably the social worker would say, you know what? I want to see parenting, counseling, domestic violence, and I think there's a drug issue, and I would stop them really quickly and say, with all due respect, can you kind of set down the laundry list